Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Wright Experience. This is episode number 97 of the show. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of the show, and I'm excited. Tonight we have an opportunity to talk about a very dear subject and subject matter, and we've got one of the best in the state of North Carolina to do so. Our topic tonight has to do with a phenomenon or epidemic of sorts that is affecting us across the country in terms of mental health. Every business, every school district, every walk of life in some form is impacted about the mental health crisis that's going on in this country. So tonight I have the CEO of an organization that works to make life better for those impacted by mental health every day. My guest is Mrs. Natasha Holley. Mrs. Natasha Holley is a native of Bertie County, North Carolina, and a current resident of Pasquotank County, North Carolina. She received a Bachelor of Social Work degree from Elizabeth City State University in 2003 and a Master of School Social Work degree from East Carolina University in 2005. Mrs. Holley is a licensed clinical social worker, a licensed clinical addictions specialist, a certified clinical supervisor, and forensic evaluator with 18 years of experience in treating children, adolescents, and adults who have mental health and substance abuse challenges. She is currently the Chief Executive Officer and co-owner of Integrated Family Services, PLLC. Integrated Family Services is a unified and innovative organization that provides an array of comprehensive behavioral health services that include outpatient therapy, psychiatric services, mobile crisis management services, intensive in-home services, foster care services, and tailored care management. Natasha's passion drives her to advocate and support people and families affected by mental illness and substance use issues. As a result of this, she focuses on initiatives that build organizational relationships and professional development trainings involving behavioral health crisis, mental health awareness, managing behaviors, mental illness, and substance abuse use. Natasha understands that helping the profession will only thrive and be effective if current professionals make a difference and continue to contribute to the growth of others. Hence, she assists people individually in enhancing their competence related to clinical matters, leadership, as well as ethics, and offers strategies that can aid them in growing professionally. Natasha is also an adult mental health first aid instructor and a member of the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. What an interesting opportunity. She is also a board member for Benchmarks North Carolina, a member of the National Association of Social Work, and an active member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Natasha is married to my good friend Oliver Holley, and they have two beautiful children, some of my favorite in the whole world. Now, at this time, I'd like to welcome to the Wright Experience, Mrs. Natasha Holley. How are you tonight? Welcome to the
I
Wright
am well. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I know that Aiden and your daughter is
Alyssa.
Alyssa. I didn't want to mess that up. Aiden and Alyssa are doing well.
Yeah.
I understand there's some awards in their immediate past, so that's great. Absolutely proud of both of them.
Thank you.
So, Mrs. Holley, I'd like to get right into the questioning. I want to start out by giving you space and opportunity to talk to us about the work that you do every day as the CEO and co-owner of your organization and how you help families.
Sure. Within our organization, which is actually an organization that is based in Ahoskie, North Carolina. However, it covers or we provide services in all of Eastern North Carolina. It allows us to work with the uniqueness of each community and working with the stakeholders that are there, such as Department of Social Services, schools, health departments, churches, all important entities that serve people in trying to increase mental health awareness, providing professional development trainings so staff within those organizations can better understand mental health. So, in return, they are able to um, better accommodate the needs of those that they serve. And of course, we actually provide services to individuals who have mental health and substance use challenges.
And I noticed that you throughout in fact, I butchered it a couple of times, but you talked about substance use in terms instead of substance abuse. So before we get into some of the other questions, explain to us why it looks like we're deliberately using that term. Tell us about why that is.
We are. Stigma is something that has plagued mental health and substance use for years. Because of stigma, a lot of times people don't feel comfortable with talking about their feelings. They don't feel comfortable talking about their emotions because they fear being ostracized or judged or criticized. We have to, as a community, across the world and in our society begin to create safe places for people to feel comfortable to share what they're feeling and to be okay with saying that they're not okay. A big part of that is learning how to use language to support individuals who have mental health and substance use challenges. And it's called person-centered language, where we want to not define people by the conditions that they have, but rather recognize that they are still individuals who have whatever those specific issues are. One of those examples, as you stated, is instead of saying substance abuse, saying substance use. Instead of saying somebody is a schizophrenic or a junkie or alcoholic, saying their name and saying that, this is Johnny who has a diagnosis of schizophrenia or who has a substance use diagnosis. So it's just things that we can all do to decrease stigma so people can feel more comfortable with getting help when it's needed.
And so critical. I heard you use the term person-centered, I think,
Mhm.
or people-centered.
Person
And then
centered, yes.
there you go. And in the education field, we are learning to call the work that we do student-centered. So I think that's certainly where we need to go. So,
Yes.
Mrs. Holley, why is mental health an important and frequently heard topic right now? Seems that everybody's talking about mental health now. Why is that?
Well, let's start by saying mental health has always been present.
Sure.
It has just magnified or has been magnified because of, at this point, the COVID pandemic that we all have lived through and we're currently still navigating through. More people can identify with the fact that we have emotional health needs because during that period of time, all of us in some way or another had to we had to kind of deal with things that we couldn't control. We oftentimes felt ourselves having anxiety or fear because of the unknown. We became depressed or had sadness because we weren't able to see our loved ones and connect with them, which were our typical coping skills to just deal with life and stress. Some of us lost loved ones, so we had to deal with grief. So we now have a common factor that we can all identify with, and we know how it feels. And as a result of that, and we have increased awareness, we are now recognizing that we have to do a better job as society in supporting people in being well. So we can be productive in the communities that we live in, and so we can be good and feel good, which would allow us to fulfill the responsibilities that we have.
And so important is, and that kind of springboards me into my next question. So important is identification. Just having an understanding of of what to look for. So here's kind of my question: how do we effectively understand maybe some key signs, some symbols, some look fors, if you will, for a person that's struggling with their emotional and social well-being and their mental health? How do we know?
Well, I think it's important for us to understand what mental health is.
Okay.
Mental
Okay.
health is a combination of psychological, emotional, and social well being. All of that encompasses our mental health. How we're thinking, how we're feeling, how we're able to interact with people. And when we are looking at that, we have to ask ourselves, am I good right now?
Hmm.
Am I in a good place? Do I feel well? Am I able to kind of handle life? I hear a lot of times people now saying life has its ways of lifing. Are we able to deal with those types of things? Um, when we ask ourselves that, or we see people that maybe we're concerned about because we recognize that they are different in their demeanor, their mood. Some of the key signs and symptoms are feeling unhappy or seeing that people are not happy. There is sadness that's not, based upon a certain situation, but we're seeing it consistently. It can be that we're having problems sleeping. We're not able to concentrate and focus because our mind is going in so many different places. Maybe we have a lot of worry or a lot of fear. It could be I'm eating too much and I now see that I have weight gain, or it could be that I don't have an appetite, so I'm losing weight. It could be I'm sleeping more or I'm sleeping less. It can also be where my mood is changing. One moment I'm okay, and the next moment I'm not, and I'm irritable, I'm agitated. And when those symptoms are present, it truly impacts the person from being able to do the things that they are responsible for doing, such as taking care of their kids, fulfilling obligations in social organizations or responsibilities at their job. And the one that people typically key in on is, when I'm having thoughts of worthlessness, or I'm experiencing hopelessness or thoughts of wanting to harm myself. I'm actually coming up with a plan, or maybe I've even attempted suicide. But it's important that we understand that, yes, that is the extreme part of symptoms that can be exhibited. Mental health encompasses a whole lot more that may not be that intense.
And so what I learned, and I hear you saying, is we can't wait until it's episodic. We can't wait until something jumps off and then says, okay, there's a problem. We got to be looking for changes in mood and weight gain and loss, and you named a number of things that might help us diagnose and seek help earlier than waiting for an episode. Is that pretty accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
If right now you started to feel maybe a fever or
Sure.
chills, body aches, or maybe your stomach starts to hurt, you're going to quite naturally go and find some medicine to help relieve those symptoms. If it doesn't go away and you have a sore throat, and you're thinking, because there is a lot of strep throat going around in certain communities, okay, maybe I have strep throat, let me go to the doctor. We immediately seek help for physical things, but we rarely take that same initiative when it comes to our emotional health and well-being. And that is a big part of maybe how we grew up, how we were raised, because our parents, our grandparents, their parents were accustomed to keeping things to themselves. They were accustomed to not talking about their feelings and emotions, and they just had to deal with it, because if they gave any sense of them not being okay, it was a weakness.
Mhm.
And that has trickled down into our mindset, but we have to begin to look at this thing in a different way and understand that it's okay not to be okay. And when we begin to recognize, or maybe people are telling us, are you okay? What's going on? You just kind of seem a little out of it today, or I've noticed that you are a little bit more agitated. Take note of that, because sometimes we don't see it ourselves, but others around us do. So we need to constantly evaluate. And if we recognize that we are not okay or we're not doing well, begin to process what's causing that and be open to getting help if needed.
Mhm. What amazing insight and wisdom. Thank you for that. You're helping us. What can a person do once they notice and recognize those signs and symptoms in themselves, maybe even, or people that they know? What's kind of the next steps once that happens?
Speak truth. That's the first thing. A
Okay.
lot of times people are in denial,
Okay.
and want to maybe place whatever is going on other things, but we need to be honest with ourselves. We need to recognize that we're human, and as a result of that, we all go through. We all struggle. We all have life stressors. So you're not different in any way, and it's okay. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if there is a person that you trust to have conversations about what's going on, allow that opportunity to present itself where you can share with them what it is that you're going through. Sometimes talking helps.
Sure.
If you recognize that maybe it has gone far beyond that, where maybe you need some professional help, that's okay as well. Honestly, the best therapists have therapy, and
Uh-huh.
that helps people be able to be as productive and be their best in whatever they do, because they are making sure from an emotional perspective that they are okay. And when I feel okay, I'm going to be my best, and I'm going to do the job that it is that I'm supposed to do, whether it's being a mom, teacher, entrepreneur, coach, whatever it is. Another piece is, if you need to talk with your doctor because you are beginning to recognize physical symptoms that are coming about on a more frequent basis. For example, with anxiety, a lot of times panic attacks come with that. You
Mhm.
begin to get hot, flush, out of breath, can't think, can't concentrate. And at times, medicine does help. A lot of times, people are resistant to medicine, but I just ask that you keep an open mind and understand that if you take medicine, it doesn't have to be forever. It could just be during a particular season to help you get the additional support that you need, to improve in whatever the area is. So talk with your doctor, to see if that's an option.
Mhm.
Another piece is, if you recognize that you are having thoughts of suicide or wanting to harm yourself or other people, um, 988. They have simplified the number now. It is simply 988, which is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline that you can call. And although, there is a hub for the nation, that entity looks at where you are, and then they connect you to a call center that's in your area who's aware of the resources that can be utilized to help you during that particular time. If you're looking for a therapist, that's fine as well. You can do Google searches. Right now, everything is so easy to find on the internet, where you are able to look at reviews and things such as that, where you have the ability and the freedom to find that professional help, from that individual as well.
Okay, 988. I had never heard of that until tonight, but certainly we need to keep that in mind. That's anywhere in the United States. Is that correct?
That is anywhere.
Anywhere.
The call
Okay.
center now is, it's centralized. So if I'm
Yeah.
in California, I'm dialing 988. If I'm in Florida, I'm dialing 988. And you're right. That is important. That's honestly why it's an honor to be here, because we have to, just like 911, we know that's the automatic number to call if somebody has a physical health or a medical emergency. We
Sure.
have to begin to educate people that that same type of service and resource is available for people who are having behavioral health issues.
Okay. we'll continue to try to illuminate that in the work that we do here, because I think that's critically important information. And I can just speak for me. I was not aware of that until this evening. And so thank you for sharing that.
No
And
problem.
then I heard you say something else that I'm going to go back to. Dr. Janae Avett Harris, who was on here a little while back, former student of mine, shameless plug for me when I was a teacher. But she said something that you said tonight, and I think it bears repeating. If a therapist believes that sometimes they need therapy, certainly that means that the rest of us are certainly not immune to needing therapy from time to time. And so I've heard you say tonight, and I've heard her say before, to get therapy is not shameful or a problem, but it is incumbent upon those of us, when we even think we need it, to seek help and to get what we need. So thank you for illuminating that for us.
Sure.
So Mrs. Holley, employers, school districts, businesses, literally everybody now has to deal with front and center emotional issues with employees, social well-being, wellness, all of that. So talk to us about how those things can affect an employer. How does social well-being and emotional issues, how do they affect employers?
An employer employs people.
Sure.
So because all people have mental health and all people have emotional and social needs, you can't separate that.
Sure.
As an employer, you want to do what you can to create an environment where staff and employees are able to be their best selves. You want to create an environment where you provide the support that they need to do their jobs well. And what we have to begin to do is pivot a little bit and recognize that we have to begin to put energy into looking at the culture that we have within organizations or agencies or businesses to determine if, in fact, we are providing support in regards to individuals' emotional and social needs. If not, that's fine, because we're all, beginning to shift and better understand. But the key is that when we know better, we do better. So looking at what can be done to better support the employees. Is it creating wellness programs? A lot of organizations have created little communities where you may have people who do yoga during a certain period of time, or they have kind of disconnect rooms where there are massage chairs and soothing music where people can kind of come take a 10-minute break. It could be, instead of sitting in front of a computer screen doing meetings, Zoom meetings, it could be, okay, let's have a walking meeting. Let's take the meeting, you call me, and let's walk while we're talking through whatever it is that we have to talk through. It could be offering EAP services where you're connecting people to professionals who are able to help with whatever their challenges are, and understanding by doing that, you are helping the life of the employee and everybody that they are attached to. So if you have consumers that you're serving, if you have students that you're serving, or even colleagues, by investing in that area and putting more time and energy into that area, the hope is that we are able to help people be the best that they can be, which in turn will help people be more productive and be able to fulfill, whatever your organization's or agency or business goal is.
Absolutely. And that is an ongoing process that we as employers, I'm sure, need to continue to evaluate. So let's shift gears a little bit. I'm a career educator. Your husband's a career educator. So we understand that in our schools, right now, we are fighting a tremendous battle with trying to address mental health. And guess what, Mrs. Holley, a little trade secret. Most of us in education are not equipped to do that work. We know how to educate. We've been taught how to do that. Those of us that have been fortunate enough to go back and get additional schooling, we're even pretty good administrators. We know how to administer learning and things of that nature. But this mental health thing is a paradigm shift that we're having to deal with every day in our schools. And I'm going to say it so you don't have to, although you can certainly chime in. Most of us are not as prepared as we even think we are to deal with that. So let's talk about that. What do we need to do differently as educators to make sure that we are addressing the mental health component? What do we need to do?
I think the first thing is accepting that mental health is real.
Yep.
Accepting that it exists.
Okay.
Going back to the stigma, we have to ask ourselves as leaders, regardless of if you're in an educational setting or in a hospitality industry, we have to take an honest look at how do we feel about mental health? Do we feel comfortable about talking, if talking about our thoughts or feelings if we are not doing well?
Mm-hmm.
And if we are not, then we have to do the work in ourselves first. Because what we found is if leaders don't acknowledge, if leaders don't prioritize mental health, then yes, you can complete this plan. Yes, you can send this crisis plan to the state and it looks good, but we have to operationalize it by action. We have to put interventions in place. We have to follow up to make sure that those interventions and those strategies are actually being met. And it has to be become something that we live and we execute every day. It's not that we just go to a professional development training that may be 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and then we go home and it's back normal when we get within our school district. But we have to sincerely sit down, listen to the information, take it back, and then begin to look at how we can incorporate it into our practices and our processes within our school districts.
Wonderful. And what amazing advice. And Mrs. Holley, you've bought yourself a ticket to come back on here because we're going to need to delve into that more. We know that most of us at least, know that we need some help that we're not quite equipped to. We're looking at things like trying to figure out if we need to go back to the old days of day treatment. There's that a solution? I mean, those are the things that we know and we're looking at, but we really desperately need to engage in conversations with mental health professionals like yourself to understand how to best serve children. And look, we've been doing that for other things. If it's an athletic issue, we go to people who are versed in athletics, and if we want to improve curriculum, we find curricular experts. We're going to have to do that same thing with mental health, and so. I'm clear on that, and thank you for sharing that with us so that we can get that message out to our colleagues. So, what about the future? What do you see as a future for the improvement of, I guess, destigmatizing and those kinds of things, so that we can get what are some things that we need to do differently to not be afraid to address mental health, but to embrace it?
We have to educate ourselves more about it.
Okay.
The more we know, the more information we're able to learn. Okay. It allows us to then begin to make more connections. And when we begin to make more connections and we have increased awareness, then as we're doing our jobs, as we're interacting with maybe neighbors or community members, it's going to become second nature. As you mentioned, yes, my husband is an educator, father was an educator. I hear all the stories, and a lot of times, we're talking about different challenges that we're facing in both worlds, the educational world and in the mental health world. The reality, though, is we're working with the same people, right?
Right.
So if we're working with the same people, we should stop looking at it being um, the educational bubble and the mental health bubble, but understand that if we're working together and we are intertwining what we're striving to accomplish in an educational setting, and if we're able to help them with the mental health piece, then that person that we are both working with will benefit from that. So I think it's educating ourselves and understanding that the world is not the same. It's not even the same as when I grew up or when you grew up. It's different, right? So because the world is different, the people are different.
That's right.
Those people are educators. They are, even people that I have within our organization. We're all different. So
Sure.
we have to understand that if nothing changes, nothing changes. That's one of my favorite sayings, right? If the world has evolved, then what we do must evolve. We need to begin to look at what's effective now based upon what's going on in our society, what we all are experiencing, and start there, but be open to learning how to do things differently.
Thank you so much for that. And what amazing insight once again. I knew this was going to be a powerful episode, and we certainly need to and are willing to provide space for us to continue this talk because this work that we're doing, Mrs. Holley, affects all of us at some point, at some phase. So thank you for your willingness to share with us and so forth. Is there anything that I have left off in my questioning that you might want to share with our audience at this time that you can think of?
Just above all, know that it's okay not to be okay. And we hear that more often now, but truly believe that. And if you are not okay, let's begin to identify what's causing you to not be okay. What are those triggers? What we can do about it to make a difference. Everybody's life matters, right? Although we might be going through something right now, it matters. And it's important to get the help that's needed so you can be the best that you can be. The last thing I would share is if someone comes to you and they begin to vent about what they may be going through, or if you recognize that they are having signs and symptoms, listen.
Yes. Yep.
Don't judge. Listen. And give them access to the resources that I've shared with you that can not only help you if you are experiencing, challenges, but it can help that person as well.
And I've also helped me make sure that this is right. Down at the bottom of the screen, you told us earlier. Did I get that right? 988.
It is 988, and that is now the National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
Okay. All right. So I need to update that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. National Suicide Hotline. Okay. Thank you for that. I will get that corrected, and occasionally we'll make sure that we post that during the work that
Please
we're
do.
doing here. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Mrs. Holley, if you'll hold on with me for just a minute, we'll come back and close out the show. To the Wright Experience audience, I want to thank you so much for this episode. We certainly have learned a lot tonight. I knew that the opportunity to bring Mrs. Holley aboard would open our eyes to a very serious and prominent issue that's going on in our local areas and across the United States. I would argue that we are, if not in the midst of, certainly on the brink of a mental health crisis. And we need to get serious about making sure that we help those that need help, but also get help ourselves as we need to, as we continue to move on. The Wright Experience is fastly approaching the month of May. I am in the process right now of seeking and booking guests to be on the show to continue the work that we're doing. And very soon, certainly late spring, early summer, we will be implementing our 100th episode. Got some ideas about some special things that we want to do to maybe have a conglomerate of people appear on that show. Most importantly, though, we're going to continue to bring the very best content. Some of it will be directly tied to education. And then sometimes we will delve into issues, kind of like we've done tonight, the very serious issue of addressing mental deficits in people and helping make ourselves better. This work has been a joy thus far for me to do. Been doing it since February of 2021. And certainly each episode is exciting to me to do, to try to bring the very best content that I can find. I hope that you're enjoying it. And I ask that you continue to subscribe to our YouTube page that is titled with my name, Dr. William Wright Jr. We would love to have you as a continued part of our audience. And also, we're thankful to those of you that view us via Facebook and Facebook Live. Mrs. Holley, I'm eternally grateful to you for appearing and being a part of this Wright Experience episode. And certainly your insight and your professionalism and what you do is desperately needed for us all. This forum is absolutely open. If I go too long and I don't contact you, you hit me up and just say, or do what you do to Oliver and mandate that I get you back on this show so that we can have these conversations. I think they're absolutely helpful, and make sure that he blesses you for sacrificing to be on this show tonight. How about that?
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And thank you. And please give my regards to my two favorite children in the Holley household. And thank you to the Wright Experience audience for allowing us to bring this content to you. And good evening.